Greetings, rise and shine, brethren. We are the World Global Reset Restoration Network family, comprised of 198 sovereign nations with over 7 billion sovereign principles, being of one mind, one heart, and one spirit, walking together under the divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I come to you as a voice in the wilderness to introduce to you a man. No, not just any man, but a man sent by Yah Allah to redeem mankind. Dr. Hindu I.L. Henderson, the Adak Chief Justice of the Universal World Court, and who's also known as Yehoshua Mashiach, the Son of Man. The information that you will be receiving in this and other videos you won't get from anywhere else on the planet. Hear the many truths and fulfillment of the laws, judgments, and sentencings from our Creator, Father Yah, as well as the fulfillment of the true interpretation of the Holy Scriptures and books. Now, without further ado, Dr. Hindu I.L. Henderson with his beloved host, Shelley Bowling.
Heavenly Father Yah told us that He was a jealous God and that we should have no other gods before Him. And we have made idols out of everything. Idols are nothing more than false gods. We even have a television program called American Idol. Some idolize the Kardashians. Some idolize politicians. Some singers and musicians. Some Hollywood stars. We even call them stars. All of these idols, sports idols, you name the sport, there are people that have idols within each one of those sports. Religious leaders have been made idols. Some even idolize Jorge Bergoglio, the Pope, known as Pope Francis. All of these are false gods. We only have one sovereign, and that is Yah Allah Himself, the creator of heaven and earth. And now, because of this pandemic, religious services are closed. Meetings and gatherings of sports meetings are closed. Music concerts, they're being closed. All of these things now shutting down. As the idols are being removed, many of them, celebrities, it seems to be in inordinate numbers, are supposedly coming down with coronavirus. Politicians, first ladies of several different nations, so-called coming down with coronavirus. YHWH told us that they would be coming down with these things. Many of these so-called idols have been those very ones participating in human trafficking, sex trafficking, satanic ritual, pedophilia, drug trafficking, horrible things that normal people would not even want to think about, let alone know about. So now the world is changing, family. And it is changing very quickly. In our own area, they have shut down all bars and restaurants for the next 2 weeks, and they're only telling people to gather in groups of 10 or smaller. Several states now have told everyone in their state to shelter at home. California, New York, Illinois just came on board with that here in the last few hours. So the world is changing around you. We've told you that the wars were coming. They've been written. It's in all the holy books. World War III is at our doorstep. The borders have shut down. Just recently the border with Canada was shut down. YHWH and I have been telling you for several years now that our nation has been surrounded by the nation, getting themselves ready for war. The North, the South, the East, and the West, surrounding the so-called U.S. We know the Battle of Armageddon is before us. Not saying these things to put you in fear, family, but you already know, if you have read the holy books, these things are coming. And if you have been listening to YHWH for not only these calls, but the last 30 plus years, many of you have been listening to him for that long. He's been telling you these things were coming. Well, now they're here. We cannot go around the family, but we must have the wisdom of Allah and His Son. They're written in the holy books, and He continues, YHWH, continues to tell us to read the books. Because everything that is happening right now, family, is written in those books. But I was talking about the origins of the word idol. And that the word idol means an image of a god used in worship. Hopefully you heard the part when I was talking about how we throw that word around, such as in the TV program American Idol. And in our common conversation we use the word idolize. Idolize means to admire, revere, or love greatly or excessively. Some of you have idolized celebrities, sports figures, literary people over the years. Idolizing anything other than Father Yah Allah is a sin, and He is a jealous God. In Leviticus 26 it says, "You shall not make idols for yourselves, neither a carved image nor a sacred pillar shall you rear up for yourselves, nor shall you set up an engraved stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord Yah, your God. I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and cast your carcasses on the lifeless forms of your idols, and my soul shall abhor or hate you." In Deuteronomy He says, "And you saw their abominations and their idols, which were among them, wood, stone, silver, and gold." They have provoked me to jealousy by what is not God. They have moved me to anger by their foolish idols. But I will provoke them to jealousy by those who are not a nation. I will move them to anger by a foolish nation. That should sound very familiar to those of you at the US of A, who we know to be not a nation. All of these statues now are being torn down. Jefferson Davis's statue was recently taken down. Christopher Columbus. Even Mount Rushmore is disintegrating. In 2008, they had 144 cracks that needed to be sealed. I find that very interesting because Father YHWH has sealed 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes, making 144,000 that he sealed. So Mount Rushmore is actually disintegrating as we speak. And all of the other things that are placed as idols before us will be brought down as well. For there is only one true God of the universe, and that is Yah, Allah.
You've got the majority of the world carrying down old would-be monuments, just as I have told them that they would. I told them that there would come a time when all of the things that their fathers and their fathers' fathers had done would be destroyed, all the way to their customs, all the way to their language, all the way to their so-called would-be home beliefs within their house. I told them that those monuments would come down. They would have to be torn down, for they will never ever say that again. I've said this many years ago on these calls. And those of you now who can go back into their memory banks and remember dialing up your Rolex and finding those things in which I'm pretty sure you somehow filed away on these conversations in which we've had in the past. Now, many of them, just as I said many years ago about the toppling of the would-be statue of one they called Saddam Hussein, I told them he would not be the only statue that would be getting toppled before the world ends. And as now you begin to see those men like Robert E. Lee, you begin to see those men that are coming like even Winston Churchill, and if he has a would-be statue of, I guarantee you in only a few more days and months, you will see them toppling him as well. You're going to see them push old Abe Lincoln in the United States of America out of his seat. So they're going to realize that the majority of those men were nothing more than those that would have been classified to be slave owners. And many of them, they're going to realize even they were slaves themselves, abusing other slaves. So now, as I begin to watch from a distance, many of times, I'm watching such as those monuments that are coming down, such as would have been Williams, as we might call him. We will look at him as Winston Churchill. We're looking at those such as Thomas Jefferson, the Robert E. Lees, and many others. We have to look at every last one of them are in the chain of nothing more than a chain of oppression. So we cannot just leave just one of them up. We cannot allow Lincoln to still be sitting in something that they classify as a Lincoln Memorial, knowing that Lincoln himself never signed on to freedom. He signed on to nothing more than a way to survive for himself. For Lincoln relied on his own skin color, rather than knowing that his blood, DNA, and RNA was nothing more than RNA and DNA of melanated people himself. But hiding that, knowing that they call him Afro-Lusus, himself known as Afghanistan, which they knew him to be of a black descent. And because he was able to get with those brothers and sisters of a lighter persuasion because of his skin color, he was able to buy himself time long enough that he lived upon the planet of rightful age, whereby he died out in what he deemed to be freedom when he truly died as a slave of manipulations and tricks, where he allowed himself to be put in a position where his brothers, I'm talking biological brothers and sisters, were still being slaves and kept on a plantation. He himself lived a rightful age of being what he deemed to be free, and a slave would be camp of known as the White House, where he himself lived there as nothing more than a slave, and realizing that upon prior to him dying, he began to try to find some way to rejuvenate the foundation of a world that he had allowed to slip through his grasp as president to set the whole world free. He found himself dying in a world which was still oppressed, a world that was still under slavery, a world that now, even though many of the presidents of the United States are claiming him as one of their great heroes, they themselves are still under oppression, slavery, and apartheid. As we move forward, United Nations, in this manner, knowing that now, as we've spoken in the past about the things that will come down, such as the so-called monuments of the world, monuments have represented nothing more than that aggressive would-be oppression world. The aggression of the oppressors that were known as the so-called leaders, and which did nothing more than place people in chains and rape their families and pillage their land. They all will come down. I say that once the moment comes when one will even see Lincoln stand up out of the chair in which he sits in what is known as Washington, D.C., Lincoln will finally rise from his seat. He himself will no longer be sitting in the obscure area of what they deem to be some Lincoln monument, but he is going to stand on his feet again, Lincoln will, and he will finally allow the people to live out some so-called emancipation proclamation in which they said he signed, but no one truly has a document of this nature. No one can present it, and those that do always find the time to bring one that's in type form, which knowing that even during Lincoln's time, he would not have seen typing of this nature, for even the things that he was being learned and being taught was being done by a candlelight, which he himself never, ever had that in which was in his household and his growing, whereby he would have been able to call it electric, where he would have had lights that would have shined in his house bright, but he would have did it by candlelight. And thereby, this was not by choice. This was by the lifestyle and the form of where he came about and how he came about, that he was able to survive a life to even become known as some would-be leader of an oppressed people. Yes, and even that he himself never found the time to attack or to bring any would-be law against those oppressors. He himself was only able to say by some way that there's a document somewhere that says that all men were created equal and that they were endowed by the creator of the and unalienable rights. And he himself had to resort to the only true document that says man was created equal and that he was created free. And Lincoln had to come to a conclusion and a reality that the Holy Scriptures were the only place that that document truly ever existed. And it said that in the beginning was God, and he created man in the image of himself, which would put him on the grounds of being equal. He would have had to agree that that was the initial time and the initial place that man was given his freedom to be equal with everything on the land. For even he found an equal in one in whom he deemed to be nothing more than his companion, known as man and woman, Adam and Eve to the world. But they were put on the level where they were created equal. And whereby this is where the document has come about for the whole entire universe. And now, United Nations, everyone must recognize this or he will be eliminated from the free world. And whereby we do know it to be free, because no man can work in regards to obtain it. No man can put himself in a position to become a great thief where he will be able to steal it. No man can put himself in a position where he will become master of the world when he himself still cannot master the system of being able to control his own bowels. In the United world, we must realize that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and everything that was around it, within it, everything that was beneath it, everything that was above it. It was created by only one God, Yah of the universe, and we must all come to this conclusion, or we will all perish on a ship that will be bound for nowhere. They're being forced to do it. Yes, I told them in the past, all of those Confederate flags and all of those things that they deemed to be of the past, that they once found to be of their so-called founding fathers of the heroic world, I told them that it was going to come down. I told them that. For those of you who have been listening to me, I'm pretty sure you heard me say that even the monuments in Washington will come down. Abe Lincoln will be removed from his seat. So I'm believing that he's going to stop sitting down at some point and learn to stand up. And if he don't, he won't be sitting in D.C. much longer. All of those monuments are going to come down. They don't get a choice. Let's just say back in the year of 2000, I had the ability to be able to go there on a visit. And while I was there, I was able to lay my hands on all of those monuments. And I told those monuments that they needed to find some place to go. They're not needed, not here, not on this planet. So all the so-called heroes, and I know this kind of angers a lot of you that are listening, because you don't want them to go. You want to truly hang on to a history that is not really history at all. You want to just hang on to these things. You want to make yourself believe that you're in a land that is so free and so great that is going to somehow benefit you when you are suffering and dying every day at the hands of the same ones who place these monuments up just because of your family members' demise. Let me help you out. The Emancipation Proclamation is still in the works. It hasn't taken place yet. No one has been set free. Let me repeat that. No one has been set free. And Abe Lincoln is still in his grave. He hasn't gotten back up to redeem you yet. He hasn't gotten back up to save you yet. But you haven't been released yet. You're still under the same bondage you were during his time. Yeah, I know. So you say you don't have on shackles and chains anymore. Let me help you out. With the new technological world, technology, those chains are now invisible. You can't see them, but they're there. Those shackles, they're invisible now. You just can't see them, but they're still there. Yeah. I tell you, if you travel too far outside of the perimeter in which they have you in, let's just say that they're going to truly abolish you or demolish you. You need to understand that right now, as the world turns, things are beginning to heat up. I know it's getting quieter and quieter and quieter. Everyone has forgotten about the coronavirus 19 now, and they're beginning to even cool off a little bit about what is known as Black Lives Matter, just as they did before. And they will continually to find themselves cooling off, because every now and then one comes along where he gives them a sucker or a pacifier, we would call it. Some call it a sucker. Some call it a pacifier. It's just still a plain old rubber nipple that has nothing in it that's going to benefit you, neither would it come to the point of nourishing your body. So go ahead. You can do good by, as they would say, sucking on it. I can assure you that at the end of the day, they will still receive nothing. The Confederate flag that many of you are asking me about, yes, they will come down. That was a part of the monuments that I was speaking of. Let me help you out. One in which you probably are going to be very sad to know that it will come down too. It's called the Old Glory. The old red, white, and blue. With all the stars that have been added since the time that it first found its way up a flag, in which a flagpole on the way down, they were bringing another flag down just to hoist it up where it could at least highly wave itself around. Let me help you out. That's a monument. Red, white, and blue. Old Glory. The one that was made by Abraham Lincoln's whore. Stay with me. I know you don't like me saying things like that. You know, old Bessie, she was nothing more than a whore. A whore. Whore in my neighborhood. Whore in your neighborhood. Kind of spelled kind of different, I guess. Or either maybe we're just pronouncing it different. I've seen it. I've heard it. But it still sounds the same to me. And at best, Bessie, your flag will come down. The blanket, the sheet, whatever it was that you were using while covering yourself with old George, when y'all decided to come from up under it, and that I have an idea. Why don't we make these stripes as long as you are? Anyway, let me keep it clean. But anyway, I can say to you again, that is one of the monuments that will come down, Old Glory, known as the so-called American flag. It's going to come down. It's got to. If America comes down, we're not going to place it in the archives. We're not going to place it in a museum. We're not going to place it somewhere where it can be remembered. It's going to be done away with. I know. You got to understand, I'm a soldier too. For all my brothers that fought for it, I need you to understand that you are not fighting for a flag as they are now beginning to realize. You are fighting for your own life. You're fighting for your own freedom. You're fighting for the right not to be a slave in your own would-be house. That's what you're fighting for. So now that the NFL and would-be, the one in whom they would call him Roger, they have decided that they were going to now allow men to be able to kneel while the national anthem was played and the flag was being hoisted up to its highest point, knowing that now they realized that they were not kneeling as a disgrace to the flag or a disrespect to the flag, but it was just as I said. They were doing it in order that they might show the world that they were being disrespected, and they were also being put in a position where they were slaves, and they had to stand to a flag, or they had to stand to what was known as the law of the world based upon the United States of America's instruction. But they realized that they were standing not by their own would-be rights. They had no rights. They were just standing because they had to. It was an order, a command. An order to the slaves, an order for the slaves. And thereby they realized that in all of the brutality, whether it be the brutality of the police force or whether it be the brutality of those that classified themselves to be their senators or their councilmen or their so-called would-be city officials, irregardless, it's still all the same. It's abuse, and it's called abuse of a power. I know right now that the example that goes out to the rest of the world from the United States of America is a very cruel example. for the United States of America now, as a would-be said nation, and which is a made-up nation, a self-made nation, must look into the fact that it itself is a self-made nation. It is a nation which was made up on lies, manipulation, murder, rape, pillaging, yes, and incest. And that nation, this nation, in which now deems itself to be a great nation, must come to realization that all these things in which it has committed is nothing more than truly a sin and a crime against God. As we watch now, the United States of America preparing itself to tear down monuments, and at the same time, you've got others who are protecting those same monuments that done nothing for the world, but put the entire world under slavery. Place the entire world in a chaotic condition. Put the entire world in a state of panic, a pandemic of diseases, death. And now, as we go forward, we realize that the world itself has already recognized that one nation, which has prided itself on being some nation that was founded upon the principles of God. And all the nations have done is true research, investigations. And I found that particular nation is nothing more than a nation made up of nothing more than liars, and as we have stated, murderers, rapists, child molesters, yes, and so forth.